Alright everyone, how's it all going? Hopefully on this New Year's Eve, hopefully you've had a good New Year's Eve night, if it's already been. If not, as like in England and some countries around the world, then hopefully tonight you'll have a good New Year's, etc. In this video, it's a video quite close to my heart, um, about Asperger's syndrome. I was asked to relay this video to you about Asperger's syndrome. I have put some notes out on these bits of paper, so I will be putting my head down to refer to some notes there. It will be quite a long video, so if you want to go and come back to this video, for example, that's fine by me. So what I'll do is I'll say what is Asperger's syndrome, a brief, just basically a brief. Then, like, for example, I'll be doing what Asperger's involves and bits and pieces, some history, websites on Asperger's. I'll be doing my interaction with it, because I have it, a mild form of Asperger's syndrome. So yeah, so hopefully you can enjoy this video, and here goes. So the question is, what is Asperger's syndrome? What I've got here says a developmental disorder which falls within the autism spectrum, which it sure does. Asperger's syndrome, referred to by many as high functioning autism, correct, is a developmental disorder that is not widely understood. So that's what I would like to try and relay to you to understand what Asperger's syndrome actually is. Let's see. Main features of this disorder become obvious during early childhood, so from 4 to 6 years old, something like that. And they remain constant throughout life. Yep. Although the common features and degree of actual impairment can vary, of course. Yep. Rarely recognised before, the age of 3 is more common in boys than girls. Core features of the syndrome are lack of social skills, correct, limited ability to have a two-way conversation, and intense interest in a particular subject. Most of these children attend normal primary schools. Yep, and what I said in that little introduction of Asperger's syndrome is what I'll be talking about in this video. So just a little bit of intro. Hopefully you're with me on this. So basically, what is Asperger's syndrome, or what is Asperger's syndrome? This is what Asperger's, or Asperger's, where you try to pronounce it, involves. So you've got, for example, you've got the social interaction there. So I made all different bullet points there, so I'll relay them to you. Social interaction. So a lack of demonstrated empathy affects aspects of communal living for persons with Asperger's syndrome. So basically, like, for example, living on your own is more difficult than for someone without it. Individuals with AS, which is Asperger's syndrome, so I'll be saying AS quite a lot, which is Asperger's syndrome. Individuals with AS experience difficulties in basic elements of social interaction, which may include failure to develop friendships. So basically meaning you are more likely not to be able to communicate with a person via saying hello, hi, how are you, what's your day been, etc., etc., because you have AS. So friendships become more a challenge to have friends anyway. To seek enjoyments or achievements with others. For example, we've got showing others objects of interest. So basically, people with AS like to share their enjoyments and achievements a lot more than a person without it. A lack of social or emotional skills. For example, you've got social games, give and take mechanic. So basically, say for example, you're doing a game which includes give and take, and then for example, you might not be able to give and take. For example, it's quite a difficult social and an emotional thing. So, for example, the friendship side of it as well. Impaired non-verbal behaviours in areas such as eye contact, facial expression, posture, and gesture. So, meaning that it's very difficult for a person with AS to have eye contact, a level eye contact with a person. Your eyes wander all over the place, for example. Your facial expressions are normally glum and dim and that. Posture, like normal people like that, normally like stuff like that, because find it very difficult. People with AS may not be as withdrawn around others compared to those with other more debilitating forms of autism. They do approach others, even if awkwardly. That can happen in some cases. For example, we've got a person with AS may engage in a one-sided, long-winded speech about a favourite topic. So, for example, we've got like, say, Star Wars, for example, just pick a topic at random. So, a person with Asperger syndrome may pick a long speech about Star Wars, what it involves, what the first one, up to the last, etc., everything about it, while misunderstanding or not recognizing the listener's feelings. So, for example, not recognizing if someone's switched off or fallen asleep, if you know what I mean, because they don't want to listen. Or reactions such as a wish to change topic at the end of interaction. So, for example, say like you're with our mate and you've got a topic and you've got Asperger syndrome, you've got a topic and you're doing it. The person has some facial expression saying, "Oh, I want to change this, but I can't. Let it down." Da, da, da. That's basically what he means. Next point. However, not all individuals with AS will approach others. That's very true. Yeah, it's a scary situation, especially in a big city like London town, stuff like that. Some of them may even display sensitive mutism. That's what I had at work. I had some kids at my old job who had selective mutism. So that means they don't want to talk. They won't talk because they're scared. They won't do it. Speaking not all to most people and talk a lot to specific people, mainly people they know. That's what they do. People they know. People they don't know, they won't talk to at all. The last point in social interaction here is people with AS may analyse their observation of social interaction by forced eye contact. So basically, have eye contact, but it's very forced. That's what it means. It's very hard for someone with AS to have social interaction with friends, for example. That's a hard point as it is. The next one I put down. These are only limited bullet points. I will put down in the description below some websites you can look at for Asperger's syndrome. Restricted and repetitive interests and behaviours. So, for example, I've got people with Asperger's syndrome can display behaviour, interests, activities that are restricted, repetitive, and are sometimes really focused on one thing. So, people with Asperger's syndrome can display behavioural behaviour which is restricted and repetitive because, for example, they don't understand how to interact with people, so they might lash out, kick, hit, punch all the time. Their interests may be one-sided on one interest. That's it. Activities are restricted, repetitive, same with interests, basically. So really focus on one thing. They may stick to the same routines more in repetitive ways and preoccupy themselves with parts of objects, like lining objects up to form patterns. So, for example, you've got people with Asperger's syndrome like to stick to the same routine. So, any even small deviation from that can make into an Asperger's meltdown, which I will tell you about later on in the topic. Stuff like that. Individuals with AS may collect volumes of detailed information on a topic such as weather data or star names, for example, without a genuine understanding of a broader topic. So, in any topic, so say like weather data or star names, as I said here, they may like to collect lots and lots and lots and lots of sheets about it and not really understanding what it is, because they like to be, for example, what's the word? They like to be trying to be knowledgeable about it without having a direct understanding of it. For example, a child might memorize camera model numbers while caring a little about photography. So people with Asperger's are very good at memorizing numbers and memorizing bits and pieces. That's like for me, for example, I can memorize comedy series. Like for example, Only Fools and Horses. I memorised 95% of everything in that series. This behaviour is usually seen by age 5 or age 6, although these special interests may change from time to time, which is correct, yep. The next one I've got down here on my list is speech and language, which is very, very, very important. Although individuals with Asperger syndrome speech typically lacks significant depth, which is very true. That's what I'll talk about my speech and language a bit later on in the topic. Speech may be unusually fast, jerky and loud because they don't understand how to get their speech out on one level playing field. Speech may convey a sense of incoherence, correct, yep. Individuals with AS may fail to detect whether the listener is interested or engaged in the conversation. That's what I spoke about earlier. Basically, the person who are listening may not want to listen to what you've been saying the past 10 minutes. Children with AS appear to have particular weakness in areas of language that include humour, irony, teasing and sarcasm. So they won't understand your joke, for example, or they won't understand why you're teasing them, stuff like that. It's just a lack. It's just in here. There's lots of tests that have been done that can show you people without Asperger's, people with different types of their brain. You know what I mean? Then you've got motor and sensory perception. So, for example, I wrote down here, these include differences in perception and problems with motor skills, sleep, and emotions. So, for example, with this, I'll just do a couple of examples. With sleep, they may not want to go to bed at all. Their patterns are all erratic and different, and they may wake up really, really early. Or in some examples, they may not want to get up at all. Emotions are all over the place. So, for example, something like you've split up with your girlfriend, and you may one day burst out into crying, or another emotion, for example, rage, hit things randomly. Just something happened, or you've hurt yourself on a bit of equipment, and you just go blah, 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 and you start punching things. That's what it can mean. Individuals with AS often have excellent visual perception of the surrounding environment. Basically, for example, if you're going into an area, even an area you don't know, people with AS most often can scan the area of where you are and think, right, that's that, I've got to go there. Very good perception of that. Children with AS may have delayed skills such as riding a bicycle or opening a jar. So, for example, those examples, they take a lot longer than someone without AS. So, riding a bicycle, you could have the stabilizers on for a lot longer, for many, many years longer, because it takes longer for you to realise how to ride it, for example. So that could last, your delayed skills could last up until you're into high school, for example. And also with your delayed skills, that also can be be into what's the word, into your reading and writing, for example. Children may be poorly coordinated, e.g. poor handwriting. That's what I've just said, yep. So your coordination skills, basically, if you're doing gymnastics, then putting one foot in front of the other can be tricky, or your poor handwriting, you can go, most people learn handwriting skills all the way up and they just go do, but people with poor handwriting, writing all over the place, and you go do up and down. That was like me, to be honest. Stuff like that. It's just basically a few bullet points on each, just to teach and people and help people understand about Asperger's syndrome and how it affects people in daily life, etc., etc. And also, the last one on motor and sensory perception is sleep problems, including difficulty in falling asleep and waking up very early. That's what I've just covered on. So people really don't like to fall asleep if they have it. Like, for example, me, I'm a night person more, and waking up very early is a thing that quite a lot of people do. It's just their body clocks all buggered up, if you know what I mean. And also, you've got causes here. So a genetic link, so from your family, the tendency for AS to run in families and family members who have behavioural symptoms similar to AS. So, say for example, your mum or father has had behaviour issues as a child, can be genetic. So you might have it, which might not be diagnosed for quite a long time. Also, for example, slight difficulties with social interaction, language, or reading, which I've already gone into. Your diagnosis, which is a really valid point there. Diagnosis is mostly commonly made between the ages of 4 and 11. So you get an assessment involved. So you get diagnosed. When you get diagnosed, you have an assessment by like a team of people that observes a child across settings where as well as tests. So for example, your settings are going to be at school, at home. You may go to like a room in a clinic, for example, when you get diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. So they test there for verbal, which is speech and language, non-verbal strengths. So, for example, how you, because most people with Asperger's, I mean, when they're a child, they point to things rather than say it. Weaknesses, what you're not very good at, like handwriting, for example. Style of learning, how you like to learn. Each person's different learning. They can't just sit in a room, for example, and some teacher going da 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 on. And skills for independent living. So that's a bit older, when you're probably about teenage years, for your living. So for example, you've got to get a flat on your own and you've got to try and do all the bits, and it's quite difficult with AS to do that. You get a lot of help though. Also I wrote down here conversation, which is the assessment and the verbal there. No, sorry, assessment and test, I should say. A conversation and play-based interview with the child. So conversation basically saying the person who's the doctor in the clinic is saying, for example, let me have a think there. Lovely. Saying a word, saying, hello, how are you? What have you been up to today? And got a little pad there and writing down bullet points of what you say. A play-based interview, when you're more childlike, by putting numbers on a board, simple maths question, for example, putting shapes into a little toy, different things really. Also, delayed or mistaken diagnosis can be traumatic for individuals and families, which is very true. Yep. The next page, as I say, do pause it whenever you like. It's going to be quite a long video, but I do like to get. Also, I would like to get your points down below in the comment section of what I've said and that. It's just basically bullet points. There's a lot more in depth into it, but I won't go too in depth, obviously. Next one, you've got management. So how you treat your Asperger's, manage it day-to-day, daily life. For example, Asperger's syndrome treatment attempts to manage distressing symptoms. Yep. Also to teach age-appropriate social and communications that are not naturally acquired during development with intervention from a specialist tailored to the need of individual based on an assessment. So that's quite a lot to get your mouth around. For example, I'll do it like from child onwards. From a child, you've got here also to teach age appropriate social and communication. So, for example, social, interaction with friends, how to teach people to interact with friends, not to snap down their necks about things. Also, communication, talking to people. It's very hard with different people, but you learn that as you go older. So you also get management from a specialist, like in a clinic. You probably go once a year, and then up after a certain point, and then you go once every 2 years, for example. But I'll talk to you about that more in the coming bits in this video. Yeah, you just try and manage it. So sort of you learn to manage it more when you grow older, obviously. Medication. There's no need for medication. There's no direct treatment for Asperger's syndrome. Just managing it. Care must be taken with medications. If you get diagnosed with medications, very rare to take very good care because of a lot of side effects with the medication. But 9 times out of 10, you go to your doctor. They say they put you on a course, like a clinic when you get diagnosed as a kid, stuff like that. The next one, hope you're following me with this. Asperger's syndrome is a disability. So Asperger's syndrome is a lifelong developmental disability. Get that word, disability. People don't say it is, a bit like man flu, but I won't get into that. But it's a disability that affects people, how people see the world and interact with others. So when you grow older, you can become on disability benefits for your AS, for your Asperger's. And it's very hard like, to interact with others, as I said before. So that's basically what I put there as the. Oh, let me just get back to what Asperger's involves there. Here we go. Number 2. Possible Asperger's traits. So things that people with Asperger's will do. If you don't know, then you can look out. These are things to look out for what people can do with Asperger's. Different forms. There's mild Asperger's. There's like your medium form, and there's severe, and then there's autism, which is slightly different. So people with Asperger's may possess these bits like inappropriate laughing or giggling. So, for example, they just burst out in fits of laughing or giggle randomly at something. Or, for example, they got this, scratch their head and laugh and giggle like that. No fear of real danger. So it's more as a child, they run up in the road or bump their elbow and be like, oh, fine, whatever. Apparent insensitivity to pain. So that's what I said. They bump their elbow, bump their head, they're like, I'm fine, whatever. You might have a cut or a bruise, they might not even notice. May not want cuddling. So that's his social interaction come into it again. So may not want to be cuddled by a parent or a girlfriend, for example. Lack that social interaction. Sustained, unusual or repetitive play, uneven physical or verbal skills. So first part of that is sustained, unusual or repetitive play. So for example, let's see, they like to play, just for example, with this pen. They just like to hold the pen and just do that a lot. with it, or play or watch a DVD over and over again, or play the same sort of toys like Thomas Tank Engine toys, or watch a DVD of that, or whatever over and over and over again. That gives them so much joy and happiness. Uneven physical or verbal skills. So, for example, that means kissing and all the rest, and that wouldn't go much into that, but also may avoid eye contact, which I've said already. So, for example, someone's saying something, and they would go like that, and they may say yes, 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 and the person may say look at me, and they do, and then they go off again, which is a thing. May prefer to be alone. So most people with Asperger's like to be alone. For example, on their own, just playing something. They find it much easier. They don't like to be in crowds of people. Even at school, especially in primary school, they like to be one-to-one. One-to-one is the best way of managing your Asperger's, like in maths, English, science, all sorts. It gets better as you grow older. You learn to have social interactions and manage that better in classes, because it's like 20, 25 to a class for some things in high school. Next one I hear that I got down is difficulty in expressing needs, may use gestures. I briefly touched this, may just go, so say for example, the pen, they won't say, can I have his pen? And they'll be like, basically saying gestures, like for what they want. Obviously, babies, you don't know, but as they grow older and start to speak just slightly more, they'll just use gestures. They can't, if they can't express what they want in speech and language and all that. Next one's inappropriate attachment to objects. So they won't. So for example, it's mobile phone. They won't let it go. Oh, bloody thing! There we go. Is it? Oh, I got it. Got it. Sorry about that, guys. So for example, attach this. Say for example, it's mobile phone attached to it. They won't let it go. They won't let anyone touch it. Won't let anyone have anywhere near it. Insistence on sameness. That's basically like being alone. They want things to be the same. Anything slightly different, or say for example, someone's moved something, moved this CD. For example, they moved it from here on the table to here. They'll get absolutely stressed, which is like an Asperger's meltdown. And I'll say that one in a minute. Put that back there, for example. And next one, echoes words or phrases. So, for example, someone says, "Are you going?" or "Are you going home?" or something. They'll basically repeat, "Are you going?" or stuff like that. They won't understand what the phrases and words mean, so they don't know how to respond to that. And then you got inappropriate response or non-response to loud or unusual sounds. Sometimes with traits of Asperger's, you'll see kids in crowded situations or in school with headphones, big fat headphones, because they don't like the loud sounds. They don't like loud sounds, right? And they won't understand. For example, they won't understand if they haven't got the headphones on. They would put the fingers in their ears because they can't. It's high pitch. What's called a high pitch frequency, and that. And also, the other part to that is no response to loud or unusual sounds. Like for the high pitch frequency, can also mean that they won't hear it. They won't hear. Say someone's shouting at you, say you're in the back of a class, for example, like at high school, and the teacher in front of the class can be quite a big width away, saying, for example, my name, like Peter, are you doing such and such, in a high voice. You might not hear it because of the high pitch frequency. It won't go, not go round in your ears, but it won't register. Spins or rocks, self or objects. So he likes to play with an object and spin it, or you might see them rocking a bit. That's basically that. difficulty interaction with others. I've just basically touched on that as well. They haven't got much social interaction with others, so they can't just go into and make friends. They might feel more alone, for example, which is a very hard thing to deal with. I've dealt with that before. And this here is the Asperger's meltdown, which I've wrote down myself here. It's where a person with autism or Asperger's temporarily loses control because of emotional responses to environmental factors, and it's also not caused by specifically one thing. So, for example, say you've moved something of theirs off, and they can't find it. They may just blow a gasket, hit things, kick things, stress out, scream, and that. That's what's called a meltdown. There's a lot of ways that you will be able to respond to that later on in life. Next one, poor communication skills. Just briefly, quickly, just going to that. For example, they won't know how to deal with saying, say for example, hello, how are you to someone. They shy away from that. I'll briefly give you some of these. Talks about one topic a lot. Yeah, that's what I said before. Oh, it's getting hot in here now. Blimey. They talk about one topic a lot. Like, for example, I said I'm from Autism. They talk about it incessantly, and they won't shut up about it. That's basically about it. Let me see. I'm just reading off this what I write down and printed off as well. Often, this is one that you need to know. Often teased and bullied by other children. A lot of children, especially in these days, kids. But when I was at school, it was mainly teenagers. I don't understand how you are interacting with something or saying something because you have Asperger's syndrome. They won't know what it is. So, for example, they tease you, they take something away from you, they may physically bully you or verbally or mentally bully you, which is a very bad thing, which I've experienced myself. Be the odd one out. For example, they're playing, someone like kids are playing football, high school, primary school, etc., and they don't want you to join because you're a bit weird, for example. Or even in PE, for example, you're the last one that they pick for football because you can pick teams. You're the last one they pick. You think, oh, I'll pick him, or I'll pick the one that's a larger kid, for example. So, let's see. Familiar routines. That's what people with AS like. A familiar routine. For example, I don't want no change. If there is change, they take a lot longer to deal with it than someone without Asperger's syndrome. They go on a path of downward spiral, for example, but then they do pick themselves up when they know where they're going or what's happening. They have to be told 5-6 times what's happening. What else we got? In eccentric or unusual behaviour. So, for example, they're doing things, rocking forward or going, it's weird behaviour, but it's just a trait they do. Solitary, repetitive play. So that means they play with one thing over and over again, or watch one thing over and over again, which they like doing. It gives them joy and comfort. That part. There we go, that bit, I just put that there. What I'll do, I'll pause this video here. If you want to go and grab a cup of tea or coffee and that, you can do. Hopefully at the moment you followed me, and I know it's going to be a long video, but I do like to get it out there because it's something that's really close to my heart, what I really like to get across to improve people's knowledge of Asperger's syndrome. Top of that. So I'll see you back in a minute. Right guys, I'm back. What I've decided to do, as this is 35 minutes already, I've decided to put another part 2 of the video out. So what I'll do is I'll end this video now, and then what I'll do a part 2 as well, because there's a few more points I'd like to get across, and obviously my deal with Asperger's and all that. So hopefully you've gained some information there, and it's been thoroughly what's the word, spoken to you, thoroughly related to you, and that, and hopefully you've learned something and that. So I will in this video also put some links down below of some websites I want we would like you to have a look at about Asperger's in more depth. So I will put it in the second part as well. So what I'll do is hopefully you can like this video, thumbs up, like this video, comment on this video down below, share it to wherever, hit the notifications bell, turn it on so you get all notifications to all my videos, and hopefully you have a good 2018, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. See you later, guys.